In this video, I'm going to walk you through how to produce a song like Petals by Ariana Grande. I had to listen to this a few times today and I felt really inspired to jump in and make something similar. So let's waste no time, let's just jump into it. So what I find really interesting about this particular track is it's a kind of departure more into this new kind of aesthetic that Ariana Grande's sound is exploring now. Now she's at a point where she's been doing this for so long that it's inevitable that she's going to constantly be thinking about reinventing her brand and her sonic aesthetic that goes with that. So there's something really cool about the kind of timeless sounds that have been used, but there's a merging of modern sensibility that still makes it feel like contemporary R&B pop crossover. So let's jump into the little section here that I have made here. So bear in mind, I'm not actually remaking the song here. I'm just making something that kind of sits similarly aesthetically to the whole kind of vibe here. So that's basically all I've done so far here. Now comment below if you'd like me to make another video where I actually write vocals and do like a massive vocal arrangement like the song, and I can do that as a follow-up video for this. So let's dive into it. So it's pretty simple, particularly in terms of the drums. What's most important is more just the sound. So there's a very kind of like tape saturated kind of breakbeat slash boom bappy kind of feel to the drums. So a perfect tool for this particular song is Hype by Teletone Audio, and I'm so happy that I finally actually found a use case for this, because I loved it when I heard it, but I don't typically gravitate towards these types of drums. But I'm super stoked that I heard this and I was like, I have just the kit for it. So what I've actually gone and done is I've just separated this out so that I've got a little bit more control between the kick, the snare, the hi-hat, and I wanted to just kind of shape them a little more independently. But let's just listen to the drums in solo here. So very simple. Main thing to mention is we're in 3/4/6/8, so it's a very different feel, and the hi-hats are swung. So easiest way, if you don't want to dive into the technicalities of how to do swing, you can do it with, you know, a swing slider. What I do is I just take every second note and then I move it across until I get the kind of vibe that I want. And the more you push this back, the more you get this kind of like drunk groove here. And then you can go the other way as well. And that's like kind of that more like Dilla kind of vibe. There's not anything crazy going on here. We've just got the kick from the Ludwig Vasterlight kit 2010s. And then we've just got a snare that's from a different kit. It's muted, so it was a little bit tighter. And then I've just got a hi-hat from the first kit here. This is just the beat maker, so it's just the same thing here. And the main thing is just the little swung hi-hat and then the little breaks here, and then we've just got a fill that goes into the next, you know, the B section of this. So let's talk about the bass here. I played around with a few different things. So when I initially heard it, I actually jumped to a live bass. So I used the Rickenbacker initially, and it just wasn't quite hitting for me. And I just like distorted the poo out of it and then added chorus and that kind of thing, because I wasn't actually heavily referencing the track. And then later on, I went back to the track and I really wanted to try and get closer to it. So, you know, without necessarily copying it, although the vibe and the chord progression and stuff is the same, it isn't, you know, a one-to-one recreation. So I went back and I jumped in with a Moog here, we've got the Mini Moog, and I've just got it on this 3 oscillator bass preset, and then I just brought the cutoff down, so it's just basically warmer and a bit more subdued. And then I just copied it over for the bass fills, and I just turned those up a little bit more, so they're a little bit more prominent in those little gaps here. And then I added Faturator to add a bit of fuzz, so I noticed there was like some fuzziness to it. The rest is just EQ, like it's just tonal shaping here, just like cutting out a little bit of that 130, and then I just rolled off kind of even more top end to just push it back and not demand as much attention so that the vocals can sit there. It's so important to have that in mind when you're producing music for artists, which is predominantly what I do. Like, I don't necessarily make a lot of instrumentals for instrumental's sake. Like, it's always to have a top line melody, a vocal, a story, and that kind of thing. So you know, thinking about how that's gonna work together with a vocal in there, super important. Next thing here is we've just got the piano here. So I went for a really subdued piano. I've got this felt piano, and I'm just gonna turn off the effects here, and you can hear it without the effects. And then we're just jumping between this F minor 9, 7/9, and then we've got this G7. So this is what's kind of creating that, you know, both the 9 and the flat 7 is just creating that kind of jazzy feel that's also kind of a little bit like moody and mysterious, because then we just kind of resolve back into that F again. That's the main chord progression, but the most important thing here is the processing. So this isn't necessarily a part of the original, but with little things like this that you want to be more atmospheric and you want to sit behind but also just glue everything together, you can play around with kind of messing things up. So I used Decapitator and I added some distortion to it to just give it a bit more bite. And then I'm using this Dark Sky plugin by Cymatics, and this is kind of like a granulary delay thing, kind of like a crystallizer, if anyone's familiar with that, by Sound Toys. Similar kind of thing here. So I'm going to turn it on and off so you can hear what it's actually doing. So that's just with Decapitator, and then with this, it's kind of dissipating it, it's diffusing it, it's adding octaves, it's making it shimmery and sparkly, and then I can just tuck that back and then glue everything else together. And then that's kind of the modern sensibility, right? So we're taking all these timeless sounds, but we're creating a new iteration of it. We're making it sound more modern, and we're giving it a little bit more flavor here rather than just kind of using the bog standard thing that you would do. And then we've got some guitar here. So I'm just going to turn off the effects. Like, nothing crazy here. And then I actually used one of the Native Instruments guitars to do this. And I just played the chords in. So these same chords here that you can see, it's the same MIDI. And then I just bounced it in place. And then I added a spring reverb. So the spring reverb is the thing that really makes this sound timeless, and it's 100% wet. It's pushing it out into the ether, and it's giving it that kind of boingy, springy vibe, which we're so used to hearing from decades and decades of records, you know, from 50s, 60s, and some 70s stuff. You know, Beach Boys, surf rock, like all of that has that sound. Dub has this kind of like spring reverb sound, really nostalgic, and that's how we kind of tie in identifiable sounds and add that kind of like modern nostalgia. So that's with the spring. Love it. Sounds killer. I love this Magma Springs by Waves. And then this is just like a little layer here that I added. It's adding a little bit more attack and a little bit more texture to it. Now, the delay, you know, it's so tucked back that you can't really hear that delay. If I wanted to be super picky about it, I might even just turn the delay off so that it just comes in. And then I'm just using center to take a little bit of the center out, take a little bit of the middle, so it's just basically wide. It's enveloping the spring reverb guitar. And that's basically it, aside from this ARP. Now, I didn't quite nail this sound, but we can take some ideas from what I've done here. So again, I'm taking, you know, these classic sounds, but I'm treating them differently. I'm making them feel a little more cinematic, a little bit more kind of modern in terms of the sound design principles. So I'm just going to mute the guitar. And this XY pad changes. So I want enough attack to hear the pluck so that I can hear it, but I still want it to be in the ether. It's adding a bit of movement, but it's just creating a little bit more of a development from one section to the other. So I've just done that so that I can just get a little bit more sauce, a little bit more candy. And then a similar thing, I'm just taking a little bit out of the center, because that's where the vocals are going to live. Predominantly the lead vocal is going to be right up front and center. So if I can push things out to the sides and make a little pocket in the center of my arrangement, it's just going to make everything slot into place easily. So, you know, I did add some really nice strings here, but they just weren't right. Oh, I love that. I'm definitely going to use this for like a song, another song. Killer. So a couple things before we wrap up, a few more high level concepts of things you can do. So silence and gaps are just as important to the groove as all the other stuff. So the way I've done this is I've actually used mute automation. So on the bass, you can see that there's this sustained note, but I wanted to tighten up the groove of it and have these gaps. And then same kind of thing here. These very like short staccato notes and doing this triplet little bass fill just adds to that groove, to, you know, the overall feel that we've got going on. So, you know, what I used to struggle with bass was I didn't know how to get that kind of groove earlier on in my journey, and everything would just be sustained. And sometimes that's helpful, and that can be a stable foundation, but really thinking about how long the release of it is against the rest of your rhythmic information can create a real nice groove. So just play around with shortening notes sometimes, or adding little gaps here, dropouts where you can, and see if that helps the groove. So another final thing is, on the macro level, just more dropouts to emphasize certain moments. So here's an example here. I've got a mute on my guitar tail, so all that reverb and stuff, so that we have total silence for this fill. And listen to how this sounds as we transition into this section. So it showcases and puts the spotlight on the drum fill and the little moment of this cool little staccato triplet bass fill thing. So those are things that I noticed in the production. Now there's some cooler things, actually, like different grooves that change throughout the arrangement in the song. You can listen to that in your own time and see if you notice that difference. But they're the main things that I'm hearing. So the high level stuff that we're thinking about is aesthetic, So we're thinking about the sounds of the drums, the sounds of the guitars, bringing in a little bit of nostalgia, but processing it in a modern way. So the way that the low end's processed, the way that my attack on my drums and all of that is working is pretty modern, as well as the way that the bass hits, the fuzz on the bass and those little glides and bass fills sound super modern. And then the guitars, we're using like really timeless processing to create this little pocket of sophistication. And I think that's what's really dope about Ariana Grande's new sound is as she is becoming more mature and more sophisticated, so is her sound. And that's a really cool thing to bear witness to. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this helpful, feel free to hit a like, subscribe, and share it with anyone that might find it helpful. And in the meantime, create courageously. See you in the next one.